In the heart of bustling New York City, Ethan, a young man worn down by life's harsh realities, finds himself on the brink of despair. Sitting on a busy sidewalk, his hopes are revived by an act of kindness from a stranger, a warm sandwich that he selflessly shares with others in need. This small act of compassion catches the attention of Olivia, a young woman with a generous heart, and her stepmother, Victoria, who sees an opportunity for cruelty masked as a lesson. Victoria, driven by a bitter desire to humiliate Olivia, hatches a plan to force her into a marriage with Ethan. What starts as a well-intentioned attempt to help those in need turns into a scheme that threatens to dismantle the very essence of Olivia's kind nature. As Victoria manipulates the situation to her advantage, Olivia is left grappling with the painful reality of her stepmother's machinations. The story unfolds from the warmth of newfound hope to the cold, calculating cruelty of a stepmother's scheme. Join us as we delve into this poignant tale of kindness, manipulation, and the struggle to retain one's integrity in a world that can be both heartless and unpredictable. If you are not subscribed, I recommend you subscribe and activate the bell so you don't miss any videos. Before we dive into this story, please let me know in the comments where you're watching from. The malevolent stepmother orchestrated a heartless plot, forcing her stepdaughter into a grotesque engagement with a beggar, driven solely by a sadistic desire to humiliate her. As the day of the wedding dawned, a palpable sense of dread rippled through the gathering, magnified by the beggar's ominous revelation of a dark, hidden truth. On this fateful day, beneath the unrelenting, blistering heat of New York's oppressive sun, Fifth Avenue transformed into a harsh stage for Ethan's suffering. At 28 years old, with his hair matted and clothes in tatters, he sat despondently on the sidewalk. His once vibrant blue eyes, now devoid of their former brilliance, were clouded with the grim exhaustion of relentless hardship. The stark outlines of his ribs, painfully visible beneath his ragged shirt, bore silent testimony to weeks of severe deprivation. Ethan's existence had been reduced to a spectral presence, swallowed by the frantic, indifferent rush of the city's crowd. His stomach emitted a persistent, agonizing growl, an unyielding reminder of his dire hunger. "Just one more day, Ethan. Hang in there. Someone will see you today," he whispered to himself, grasping at the fragile threads of hope. Who am I kidding? No one even notices a beggar, he thought bitterly, his inner voice laden with the weight of his despair. The hours dragged on with excruciating slowness, each minute a relentless test of his resolve. Ethan fought a fierce internal battle against the gnawing temptation to scavenge through nearby trash cans for any remnants of food. Despite his vows to maintain his dignity, the relentless hunger clawed at him, an unrelenting adversary. His weary eyes followed the procession of passers-by, each carrying tantalizing bags of food or steaming cups of coffee. The delectable aroma of a hot dog from a nearby vendor seemed to mock his predicament, its scent tormenting him with a cruel reminder of what he lacked. Maybe I should try that shelter again. No, I can't. Ethan's thoughts faltered, leaving him shuddering at the very idea. Why did it have to come to this? Why is my life reduced to this endless cycle of misery? I wish I had a family, a home, a semblance of stability, he lamented silently, his mind drifting back to a time when life was less harsh, filled with fleeting memories of comfort and love. As the afternoon sun cast long shadows over the city, Ethan's sense of despair grew more profound. He observed other homeless souls approaching pedestrians, their voices strained with pleading for spare change, but he could not muster the courage to join them. His last shred of pride, the only vestige of dignity he had left, anchored him to his silence. Nearby, an older man, his face etched with the deep lines of hardship and wisdom, regarded Ethan with a mixture of sympathy and shared understanding. "Kid, sometimes the world seems unbearably dark, but we have to keep surviving," the man said, his voice a gravelly whisper shaped by years of hardship. If you're still tuned into this video and find the story inspiring, drop a 1 in the comments to let me know you're still with me. I know, but it feels like we're condemned to this eternal cycle of suffering. We scrape by with meager coins from kind-hearted strangers, but what we desperately need are opportunities, jobs, shelter, and nourishing food, Ethan replied, his voice trembling between fragile hope and raw disbelief. Then, as if the universe had momentarily aligned to offer a glimmer of grace, a middle-aged woman came to a halt in front of Ethan. Without uttering a single word, she handed him a paper bag containing a still warm sandwich. The rich, inviting aroma of freshly baked bread and succulent roasted meat filled his nostrils, sending a shiver of anticipation through him. Ethan's eyes welled with tears of profound gratitude as he looked up at the woman. "Thank you, ma'am. "You have no idea how much this means to me," he managed to say, his voice choked with overwhelming emotion. The woman offered a gentle smile, a fleeting gesture of compassion, before continuing on her way, leaving Ethan in stunned admiration of her generosity. Maybe there is still kindness in this world. Perhaps I am not entirely alone, Ethan thought, feeling a flicker of hope rekindle within the hollow chambers of his heart. As he prepared to savor the precious sandwich, his gaze fell upon two other men sitting nearby. Their gaunt faces and hollow, hungry eyes mirrored his desolation. Without hesitation, Ethan divided the sandwich into 3 portions, offering them to his fellow sufferers. "Hey, let's share. No one should have to face hunger alone when we have the means to help each other," he said, his voice hoarse but resonant with genuine warmth and camaraderie. In that moment, a fragile bond of shared humanity formed, a testament to the enduring spirit of compassion amid the bleakness of their existence. Across the street, 2 women observed the poignant scene unfolding before them. Olivia, a young woman with cascading brown hair and eyes that shimmered with compassion, felt a sharp pang in her heart as she witnessed the act of kindness. She took a tentative step toward the sidewalk, her resolve steeling as she prepared to offer more aid. But just then, a sharp tug on her arm jolted her back. Victoria, her stepmother, a middle-aged woman with severe features and a frosty gaze, clutched her with an iron grip. "Don't even think about it, Olivia. I will not permit you to associate with those people," Victoria snapped, her gray eyes blazing with fierce, unyielding anger. "But Victoria, they're in desperate need of help. How can we simply turn our backs on them?" Olivia protested, her voice quivering with a mixture of emotion and righteous fury. Victoria pulled Olivia away from the scene, her high heels clicking sharply against the pavement as they moved towards a luxurious store. The stark contrast between the opulent shop windows and the grim reality of the street was jarring. Olivia resisted, her gaze remaining locked on Ethan and his fellow sufferers. Victoria halted abruptly, spinning to confront her stepdaughter. Her face was contorted into a grimace of disgust and barely restrained rage. "Have you completely lost your mind, Olivia? These people are a menace. They'd likely squander any money you gave them on drugs or alcohol," Victoria spat, her tone a venomous blade. "You don't know that, Victoria. That man just shared his only meal of the day." "How can you be so heartless?" Olivia retorted, her voice trembling with a blend of anger and sorrow. Their heated argument drew curious stares from passers-by, and Olivia, usually reserved, felt a surge of defiant courage rising within her. She wrenched herself free from Victoria's grasp and took a resolute step towards the street. "They are human beings, Victoria. They deserve compassion, not judgment," Olivia declared, her voice gaining unwavering strength. Victoria, unyielding, seized Olivia's arm again, her perfectly manicured nails digging into her stepdaughter's skin with a painful pressure. "You don't understand how the world truly works, dear. These people have made their own choices. It is not our duty to rescue them," Victoria asserted, her tone dripping with condescension. "Chose. No one chooses to endure hunger or to live on the streets. How can you be so blind to their suffering?" Olivia shot back, tears of frustration welling in her eyes. Resolute, Olivia managed to break free once more. Before Victoria could restrain her, she swiftly crossed the street, closing the distance between herself and Ethan. With trembling hands, she fished some bills from her purse, her heart pounding with both hope and trepidation. "Please take this. I hope it can help in some way," she offered, extending the money to Ethan. Ethan looked up at Olivia, his eyes wide with a mixture of surprise and profound gratitude. Their eyes locked for a fleeting moment, a silent bond of understanding passing between them. "Thank you, miss. Your kindness means more than you can imagine," Ethan responded, his voice thick with emotion. "It's nothing. I just wish I could do more," Olivia murmured, feeling a complex blend of relief and helplessness in the face of their dire circumstances. Victoria watched the exchange from afar, her expression a turbulent mix of rage and cold calculation. Her gray eyes narrowed as she scrutinized Ethan, sensing something beneath his worn appearance that intrigued her. A sinister plan began to form in her mind, a scheme that could address several of her concerns simultaneously. Olivia returned to the sidewalk, bracing herself for the inevitable confrontation with her stepmother. To her surprise, Victoria did not unleash her wrath immediately. Instead, a chilling smile curved on her lips. "Well, since you insist on associating with these people, perhaps I should enlighten you about them. Don't you think?" Victoria suggested, her tone dripping with malevolent sarcasm. "What are you planning?" Victoria, Olivia asked, her voice tinged with both apprehension and defiance. Apprehensive about her stepmother's abrupt change in demeanor, Olivia and Victoria walked away from the scene on Fifth Avenue. Victoria's gaze lingered on Ethan for a moment longer than necessary, her eyes glinting with a cold, calculating determination that sent a shiver down Olivia's spine. Lost in her thoughts, Olivia didn't notice this unsettling look. Her mind was consumed by the brief but impactful encounter with Ethan. There was an undeniable dignity and kindness in him that seemed to shine through his dire circumstances, leaving a lasting impression on her. That young man. There's something remarkably different about him. Don't you think? Victoria remarked casually, her voice laced with an interest that made Olivia's skin crawl. Why the sudden curiosity, Victoria? Just moments ago, you insisted we ignore him entirely, Olivia retorted, her tone betraying her growing suspicion. As they reached the grandeur of their mansion, Victoria stormed through the door, her heels clicking sharply against the marble floor of the entry hall. Olivia followed in silence, her thoughts a turbulent storm of confusion and unease. Robert, alerted by the commotion, emerged from his office with a furrowed brow, concern etched deeply into his features. Victoria wasted no time with pleasantries. Robert, your daughter is completely out of control. Today she is almost associated with beggars on the street. Beggars, her voice reverberated through the hall, charged with righteous indignation. Robert's gaze shifted between Victoria and Olivia, his expression a blend of bewilderment and disappointment. Olivia, is this true? He asked, his voice tinged with weariness. Father, I was simply trying to help someone who was in desperate need. I don't see how that could be wrong, Olivia replied, her voice quivering slightly but resolute in its sincerity. Victoria, with a flicker of irritation, grabbed Robert's arm and dragged him into the office, shutting the door behind them with a decisive thud. The muffled sounds of their argument seeped through the thick wooden door. Don't you understand the danger here, Robert? She's jeopardizing our reputation by associating with the dregs of society. Victoria's voice was a furious hiss, her eyes blazing with fervor. Robert slumped into his leather chair, his hand rubbing his face in a gesture of deep exhaustion. Victoria, she has a compassionate heart. We can't condemn her for that, he protested weakly. A compassionate heart? In this ruthless world, such naivety is a liability we cannot afford, Victoria shot back, her voice as cutting as a blade. The argument intensified, with Victoria enumerating Olivia's perceived transgressions over recent months, unauthorized charitable donations, volunteer work in impoverished areas, and her refusal to partake in high society events. Robert listened, his face growing increasingly pale as Victoria's words painted a damning picture of Olivia's actions. She's undermining everything we've built, Robert. Our social standing, our connections, everything is at stake because she is obsessed with aiding the less fortunate. Victoria's voice was a heated whisper, laced with frustration and menace. But she is my daughter, Victoria. I can't just erase who she is, Robert protested, though his voice was already tinged with resignation. Victoria abruptly ceased her frenzied pacing, turning to Robert with a cold, calculated glint in her eyes. I have a plan, she declared, her voice suddenly calm and controlled, a plan that will address two problems at once. If you're still tuned into this video and find the story inspiring, drop a 2 in the comments to let me know you're still with me. Robert straightened in his chair, his alertness piqued by the dangerous calm in Victoria's tone. He had learned to fear the implications of her plans. What kind of plan? He asked cautiously, the dread palpable in his voice. A plan that will teach Olivia a lesson, Victoria said, her lips curling into a cold, calculating smile. A heavy silence settled over the office, dense with tension and unspoken dread. Robert stared at Victoria, a blend of fear and intrigue in his eyes. He knew he should stand up for his daughter and defend her against Victoria's manipulative schemes, but years of being under Victoria's control had eroded his resolve. What exactly do you have in mind? Robert asked, his voice barely more than a whisper, betraying his apprehension. Victoria leaned forward, her eyes sparkling with a disturbing intensity. That beggar Olivia was so eager to help. What if we use him to show her just how dangerous and undesirable people like him can be? What if we force her to confront the harsh reality of his world up close? Her voice dripped with malice, each word deliberate and chilling. Victoria, what are you suggesting? Robert asked, a shiver of apprehension coursing through him. Victoria abruptly rose from her seat, her figure casting a menacing shadow over Robert as she moved to the office window. She looked out at the meticulously manicured garden below, her cold smile never faltering. Marriage, Robert, will force Olivia to marry that beggar, she declared, her voice filled with a sinister satisfaction. Robert's eyes widened in shock, and he choked on his whiskey. "You've gone mad, Victoria." That's monstrous," he exclaimed, rising from his chair in disbelief. "Monstrous? No, Robert, it's a necessary lesson. What better way to show Olivia the cruel realities of the world than by making her live with someone like him?" Victoria replied, her tone calculated and unyielding. Robert began to pace frenetically across the office, his hands raking through his graying hair in a gesture of despair. But what about her happiness? "My daughter deserves more than this, Victoria," he argued, his voice strained but resolute despite the evident concern. Victoria turned to him, her gaze unwavering and steely. "Happiness, Robert? We're talking about your daughter's future. Think of the scorn, the whispers at social gatherings. Olivia needs to understand the repercussions of her naive actions," she explained, each word dripping with unrelenting conviction. "This doesn't seem right, Victoria. My daughter would never be ashamed of a simple man. Besides, she has a good heart. She wouldn't be so easily shaken by something like this, don't you think?" Robert questioned, his voice betraying a flicker of pride in his daughter's strength and character. Victoria's laugh was cold and devoid of humor, echoing eerily around the office. "Oh, Robert, do you believe she could endure it? She might have a kind heart, but she's still a girl raised in privilege. A few days living with that beggar, and she'll be begging to come back to her old life," she said dismissively, her disdain for Robert's sentiment palpable. Robert leaned against the desk, the weight of Victoria's proposal visibly burdening him. "And what about the young man? How do we persuade him to go along with this?" he asked, skepticism lacing his voice. "Money, dear. We'll offer him an amount he won't be able to refuse. For someone in his dire situation, it will be an offer he can't ignore," Victoria replied, her voice brimming with confidence and cruel assurance. The silence that followed was thick and oppressive, filled with the gravity of Victoria's plan. Robert stared into the void, his mind a tumult of conflicting emotions. The love and concern he felt for Olivia clashed with his fear of the social repercussions and the overwhelming influence of Victoria's schemes. I don't know, Victoria. This seems too extreme. Can't we find another way to address this?" he murmured, his voice heavy with doubt. Victoria stepped closer, her tone softening but retaining its firmness. "Robert, dear, words alone won't suffice. Olivia needs to experience the reality of her choices firsthand. Sometimes we must be harsh to truly protect those we care about," she argued, her voice a blend of persuasion and false empathy. "Yes, but forcing a marriage and manipulating my daughter's life in such a way, there must be another solution," Robert protested, his eyes reflecting the internal struggle he faced. Robert slowly stood up, his movements deliberate as he walked over to the window. He gazed out at the sprawling cityscape, a world that seemed increasingly complex and fraught with perils for his beloved daughter. With a deep, weary sigh, he turned back to Victoria. "This won't end well, Victoria. You're underestimating Olivia and the strength of her convictions," he murmured, his voice thick with genuine concern and sorrow. Victoria, her patience frayed by Robert's reluctance, crossed her arms defensively. Her eyes flashed with frustration and irritation. "Your hesitation is precisely why Olivia is out of control. Sometimes we have to make difficult decisions. You're her father, you need to teach her to guard her reputation," she snapped, her voice sharp and unyielding. As the sun began its descent, casting the sky in hues of orange and pink, Ethan sat on a battered bench in the city park, observing the steady flow of people. The serene beauty of the setting sun contrasted sharply with the turmoil of his life. Suddenly, an elegant figure emerged from the crowd. Victoria, dressed in a designer coat and high heels, looked incongruous in the park's modest surroundings. She halted in front of Ethan, her cold gaze sweeping over him with a mix of disdain and false politeness. "You're the beggar who was here earlier, aren't you?" "I'm Victoria, Olivia's stepmother. The woman who helped you today was with me," she said, her voice dripping with insincerity and aloofness. Ethan rose slowly, his confusion and defensiveness evident. "Yes, that's me. My name is Ethan. What do you want?" Mom asked, his voice ragged from hunger and fatigue. "I have a proposal for you, one that could completely transform your life," Victoria declared, a calculating smile curling at the corners of her lips. Without delay, she laid out her plan, detailing the arranged marriage with Olivia and promising Ethan a future of comfort and luxury in exchange for his cooperation. Ethan's eyes widened in disbelief as he absorbed Victoria's words. "You're asking me to marry your stepdaughter, the kind woman who helped me today, in exchange for money?" he asked, his voice tinged with incredulity. Victoria nodded, her smile unwavering and unnervingly serene. Think about it, Ethan. You would never have to worry about food or shelter again. You'd have everything you've ever dreamed of, she insisted, her tone as smooth and seductive as silk. I can't accept this. I can't exploit someone like that, especially someone who showed me kindness, Ethan replied, shaking his head with a sense of moral conviction. Victoria's irritation was palpable, but she maintained her composure, adjusting her approach. Consider the possibilities, Ethan. With this money, you could help countless people, your friends on the streets, those who suffer from hunger every day, she suggested, her voice dropping to a persuasive, almost hypnotic whisper. Ethan hesitated, his hands clenching into tight fists as he wrestled with Victoria's tempting offer. The faces of his street companions, hungry and desperate, flashed vividly in his mind. I could make a difference, he murmured, more to himself than to Victoria. Imagine the lives you could transform. Isn't that what Olivia would do? Use her resources to benefit others, Victoria pressed, sensing Ethan's wavering resolve. As Ethan pondered the moral dilemma before him, his gaze was drawn to Victoria's coat, specifically to a gold brooch pinned to the lapel. The brooch, an intricate design of a rose entwined with vines, stirred a distant memory within him. He reached out involuntarily, his fingers almost touching the brooch as a wave of emotion and recognition swept over him. This brooch. I've seen it before, Ethan murmured, his voice trembling with a sudden, intense emotion. Victoria stepped back slightly, taken aback by Ethan's unexpected reaction to the brooch. It's just an old family jewel. Nothing of importance, she said quickly, her hand moving to cover the brooch defensively. Ethan's brow furrowed as he tried to place the brooch. How strange. I'm sure I remember this brooch. I remember someone wearing it, a woman singing to me, he thought to himself, struggling to piece together fragments of a long-forgotten childhood memory. Victoria, noticing Ethan's fixation, pushed her advantage. Shall we go? I'm confident you'll help many people with this decision, Ethan, she urged, her tone laden with subtle pressure. Ethan nodded, though his mind was still occupied by the eerie familiarity of the brooch. Before he left, he turned to his street companions, his voice thick with emotion. Don't worry. I'll be back. I'll find a way to help all of you. With a final, determined nod, Ethan followed Victoria into her luxurious vehicle, its interior rich with a scent of new leather. As the car glided silently through the mansion gates, Ethan's thoughts were a tumultuous blend of apprehension and hope. I hope I'm doing the right thing. If this can help others, maybe it's worth it, he murmured to himself, his fingers nervously drumming on his knee. Minutes later, the opulent mansion came into view, its grandeur overwhelming. Ethan stared in awe at the imposing house, feeling out of place amid the luxury. Inside, Olivia was seated by her bedroom window, engrossed in a book. The sound of the car drew her attention, and her eyes widened in shock as she saw Ethan stepping out, his worn clothes starkly contrasting with the mansion's splendor. What's going on? Why did Victoria bring that man here? This can't be good. Did she do something to him? She whispered to herself, her heart racing with a growing sense of dread. Victoria led Ethan through the grand entrance hall, casting a meaningful glance toward Olivia, who was still watching from the window. Wait here, Victoria instructed Ethan, leaving him in the entrance hall's imposing stillness. With purposeful strides, she ascended the staircase and knocked on Olivia's bedroom door before entering without waiting for a response. Olivia, dear, we need to talk, Victoria announced, her voice dripping with a saccharine falsehood. Olivia turned to face her stepmother, her expression a turbulent mix of confusion and fear. Victoria, what's going on? Why is that man here? Olivia asked, her voice trembling with anxiety. Everything will become clear soon, my dear. But first, sit down. We have a lot to discuss, Victoria replied, gesturing for Olivia to sit on the edge of the bed. Olivia reluctantly complied, her gaze never straying from Victoria's inscrutable face. Victoria began pacing the room, her heels clicking rhythmically on the wooden floor. Olivia, your obsession with helping the less fortunate has become increasingly concerning. Your father and I have decided that it's time for you to learn a valuable lesson about the real world, Victoria began, her voice laden with feigned concern. Olivia's stomach tightened in dread. What are you talking about, Victoria? She asked, her voice tinged with trepidation. I'm talking about consequences, dear, and a marriage, Victoria replied, a cold, triumphant smile curving her lips. The words hit Olivia like a physical blow, and she stood up abruptly, her hands trembling with shock. Marriage. What marriage? Olivia demanded, her voice rising in disbelief. The gravity of the situation was beginning to sink in, and she struggled to process Victoria's chilling revelation. Victoria halted her pacing, turning to face Olivia directly. "Yes, marriage. We've arranged for you to marry Ethan, the man you so compassionately helped today. This will be a profound lesson in understanding the harsh realities of life and the responsibilities that come with it," Victoria said, her tone icy and unforgiving. The revelation hung heavy in the air, a stark and unwelcome truth that left Olivia reeling. Olivia's heart pounded in her chest as Victoria's words hung heavily in the air. "You're going to marry the beggar downstairs, Ethan? The one you were so eager to help today," Victoria declared, her voice laced with a cruel satisfaction. The blood drained from Olivia's face, leaving her pale and shaken. "This is insane. You can't be serious," Olivia shouted, her voice reverberating through the room with a mix of disbelief and anger. "Oh, but I am, dear. Very serious," Victoria responded with a chilling calmness. She took a step closer, her expression hardening. "And before you think about refusing, let me explain the consequences of your non-cooperation," she warned, her voice dropping to a dangerous whisper. Olivia staggered back, sitting heavily on the bed as her mind raced to make sense of the situation. "I only helped a man in need. What did I do so wrong? You can't force me to do this. It's illegal, it's immoral," she protested, her voice trembling as tears of frustration began to well up in her eyes. Victoria leaned in her face inches from Olivia's. "I can, and I will, dear. Unless you want to see your new beggar friend face very serious charges. It would be a shame if the police were to find something illegal in his possession. Don't you think?" Victoria's tone was cold and menacing, every word calculated to instill fear. Olivia's heart sank as the threat settled in. "You wouldn't do that. He's innocent. He has nothing to do with this," Olivia stammered, her voice cracking with desperation. "Why are you doing this, Victoria? What do you gain from all this? If you're still tuned into this video and find the story inspiring, drop a 3 in the comments to let me know you're still with me." Victoria straightened up, a cold smile curling on her lips. "What I gain, dear Olivia, is a daughter-in-law who finally understands her place in this family and society. You're going to learn that your actions have consequences and that not everyone you try to help is worthy of your compassion." Olivia's gaze drifted to the window, where she had seen Ethan arriving earlier. The thought of him suffering because of her was unbearable. "And if I accept, what happens to Ethan?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. "He will have a comfortable life far from the streets, and you, my dear, will learn the immeasurable lesson about the real world," Victoria replied, her tone almost patronizing but with an underlying coldness that made Olivia shiver. The scene shifted to Ethan, who was led to a luxurious bathroom attached to his new room. His eyes widened at the sight of the large marble bathtub and the neatly arranged toiletries. The opulence was a stark contrast to his previous existence. The butler's voice broke through his reverie. "Everything you need is here," he said, gesturing to the soft towels and shaving products. Ethan nodded, still in a daze. Once alone, he turned on the faucet, watching as the hot water began to fill the tub. The sound was soothing, but it did little to calm the whirlwind of thoughts in his mind. "How long has it been since my last real bath?" he murmured to himself, his fingers brushing against the tattered remnants of his clothes. As he slowly undressed, a mix of anxiety and anticipation washed over him. "Will all this dirt come off? Do I even remember how to take a proper bath?" he wondered, stepping into the hot water. The warmth enveloped him, a stark reminder of the stark contrast between his old life and this new, bewildering one. He sank into the tub, allowing the heat to soothe his muscles, but his mind remained restless, grappling with the enormity of the changes awaiting him. As Ethan adjusted to his new surroundings, the stark contrast between his past life and the opulence of his present situation was overwhelming. Each day seemed like a dream: luxurious rooms, fine clothes, and an endless supply of everything he had once only dreamed about. Yet, despite the comforts, a deep sense of unease gnawed at him. The transformation was almost too much to process. The bath, the clothes, the fine food, all of it was a reminder of the stark divide between his old life and the new one being forced upon him. He couldn't shake the feeling of being an imposter in a world that felt foreign, even hostile. Downstairs, Olivia's emotions were in turmoil as well. The wedding preparations had become a blur of white silk and intricate hairstyles, each step a reminder of the reality she was being pushed into. The beauty salon was a cocoon of luxury and chatter, but Olivia's thoughts were far from the pampering she was receiving. As the hairstylist worked on her elaborate bridal hairstyle, Olivia couldn't help but feel a pang of sadness mixed with determination. She wanted to make the best of the situation, to find a way to help Ethan despite the cruel circumstances. The idea of marriage, forced upon her as a lesson by Victoria, had become a complex knot of emotions. "He must be feeling as lost as I am," Olivia thought, her eyes reflecting a quiet resolve in the mirror. "Maybe this marriage is an opportunity to truly make a difference, to help him in the way I've always wanted to help others." The hairstylist, picking up on Olivia's pensive mood, attempted to engage her in light conversation. "Are you excited for the big day, miss?" she asked gently. Olivia hesitated, her thoughts swirling around the impending marriage. "It's complicated," she finally said, her voice soft but resolute. "But I'm determined to make the best of the situation." As the hairstylist continued to work, Olivia's mind wandered to Ethan. Their interactions over the past few days had been marked by hesitant conversations and shy smiles. Despite the circumstances, there was a genuine connection growing between them. Olivia was determined to use this unexpected turn of events to bring some semblance of kindness and understanding into Ethan's life. The wedding day dawned with a somber grace. The mansion was adorned with opulent decorations, the air filled with the scent of fresh flowers and the hum of soft music. Guests began to arrive, their conversations a mix of excitement and speculation. Ethan, dressed in a formal suit that felt both foreign and strangely fitting, stood at the altar, his gaze scanning the room with a mix of nervousness and resignation. Olivia appeared at the entrance, a vision of elegance in her bridal gown. Her eyes met Ethan's, and for a moment, the world seemed to stand still. As she walked down the aisle, her heart was heavy with conflicting emotions. She was about to enter into a marriage under duress, but she was determined to approach it with the dignity and compassion she had always strived for. Her gaze met Ethan's again, and in that fleeting moment she hoped to convey a sense of solidarity and understanding. The ceremony began, and as the vows were exchanged, Ethan and Olivia both grappled with the gravity of their new reality. Despite the circumstances, there was a shared recognition of their humanity and the hope that, amid their forced union, they might find a way to support and understand each other. The reception that followed was a blur of formalities and polite conversation, but amidst the veneer of celebration, Ethan and Olivia found brief moments of connection. Each shared glance and quiet conversation was a small step toward forging a partnership born out of adversity. As the evening wore on, the weight of their new reality settled over them both. But within the confines of their arranged marriage, there was a glimmer of hope that they might navigate their shared path with empathy and kindness, finding in each other a source of strength and support. The tension in the church was almost tangible as Ethan awaited Olivia's arrival at the altar. The elderly man's revelations had left him reeling, adding another layer of complexity to the already convoluted situation. Ethan's mind was a storm of thoughts and emotions, each one vying for dominance. The man had revealed something about Victoria's past, something that could potentially turn the tables, but the details were still unclear. The guests, dressed in their finest attire, were settling into their seats, their murmurs a backdrop to the unfolding drama. Ethan stood tall, trying to muster every ounce of composure he had left. His gaze kept darting to the church entrance, where Olivia would soon appear. The thought of the impact their marriage would have on her, and the possibility of making a difference despite the circumstances, was a small but significant source of strength. Olivia, meanwhile, was feeling a mixture of dread and resolve as she approached the church. Her thoughts were still occupied by the promise she had made to herself to uncover Victoria's secrets. The weight of the bridal gown felt symbolic of the burden she was about to carry, a burden she hoped to turn into something meaningful. As Olivia walked down the aisle, her heart pounded with a mix of anxiety and determination. The guests' eyes were a sea of scrutiny, but she kept her focus on Ethan. Their eyes met briefly, and in that fleeting moment, Olivia tried to convey her support and understanding. Ethan's expression, though conflicted, showed a glimmer of hope and resolve. The ceremony proceeded with a formal and somber tone, the vows exchanged under the weight of societal expectations and personal struggles. As Ethan and Olivia spoke their vows, the words carried a heavy significance, promises made not just to each other, but to themselves and to the future they hoped to shape together. When the ceremony concluded, the reception was a blur of polite conversation and superficial pleasantries. Ethan and Olivia found brief moments to share quiet conversations, exchanging glances filled with unspoken understanding. Despite the constraints imposed upon them, there was a growing sense of solidarity between them, forged in the crucible of their shared adversity. As the evening progressed, Ethan found himself standing alone outside the grand mansion, the cool night air a stark contrast to the stifling atmosphere of the reception. His thoughts were still occupied by the elderly man's cryptic message and the revelations about Victoria's past. Olivia approached him quietly, having noticed his absence from the festivities. "Ethan, are you okay?" she asked softly, her concern evident. Ethan looked at her, his expression weary but resolute. "I'm trying to make sense of everything," he admitted. "There's something about Victoria's past that's been revealed to me, but I'm still piecing it together." Olivia's eyes widened slightly. "What did you find out?" she asked, her voice low and urgent. Ethan hesitated for a moment before speaking. "I was told that Victoria has a history. She's been hiding something that might explain her actions and motives. I don't know the full story yet, but it's clear she's been manipulating things from behind the scenes." Olivia's mind raced as she processed this new information. "We need to find out the truth," she said firmly. "If there's a way to use this knowledge to make things right, we have to do it." Ethan nodded in agreement. "Agreed. We have to be cautious, though. Victoria is powerful and has many connections, but if we work together, we might be able to uncover the full story and turn this situation around." As the evening wore on, Ethan and Olivia began to discuss their plan, their resolve strengthening with each passing moment. Despite the challenges ahead, they found a sense of purpose in their shared goal to navigate their forced marriage with integrity and uncover the truth behind Victoria's manipulation. Ethan's heart pounded as he prepared to speak, his mind racing with the details he had learned. The church was enveloped in a tense silence, the weight of anticipation hanging heavy in the air. Olivia watched Ethan with a mixture of hope and apprehension, her eyes searching for reassurance amid the chaos. "Victoria," Ethan began, his voice steady and resolute, "you've spent years hiding behind your facade of respectability and wealth. But today, the truth can no longer be concealed." He glanced at Olivia, his expression softening momentarily. "Olivia deserves to know what's been kept from her, and everyone here deserves to hear the real story." Victoria's face twisted into a mask of rage and disbelief. "How dare you?" she spat, her composure slipping. "You have no right to question me, to disrupt my plans." Ethan ignored her outburst, focusing on the guests and the Reverend. "Victoria has a dark past that she's kept hidden from everyone," he continued. "She has manipulated and schemed for her benefit, and today is about to reveal her true nature." Murmurs of confusion and curiosity spread through the congregation. Robert, still standing, looked between Ethan and Victoria, his face a mixture of shock and dawning realization. "What is this all about?" he demanded, his voice filled with desperation. Ethan took a deep breath, gathering his thoughts. "Victoria has been hiding a past filled with deceit and betrayal. She's used her wealth and influence to control and manipulate those around her. And she's been using this wedding to humiliate Olivia, who only sought to do good." Victoria's expression hardened, her eyes narrowing. "You're a fool if you think you can ruin everything I've worked for," she hissed. Ethan's resolve didn't waver. "I'm not here to ruin anything. I'm here to bring the truth to light," he said, turning his gaze back to the guests. "The elderly man who spoke to me earlier had information about Victoria's past, a past she tried to bury." Victoria's face grew pale, and she took a hesitant step back. "Stop this at once," she ordered, her voice trembling slightly. "This is not the place for such accusations." The Reverend, still at the altar, stepped forward. "Ethan, do you have evidence of these claims?" he asked, his voice filled with a mix of skepticism and curiosity. Ethan nodded. "I have witnesses and documents that prove Victoria's involvement in illegal activities and her attempts to manipulate this situation for her gain. It's all here." He gestured to a folder he had brought, filled with incriminating evidence. Victoria's facade finally cracked. "You can't," she began, but her words were cut off by a collective gasp from the crowd as the folder was opened, revealing documents and photographs that detailed her deceitful actions. Robert, now visibly distraught, turned to Victoria. "Is this true?" he asked, his voice breaking. "Have you been deceiving us all?" Victoria's silence was deafening, her earlier bravado evaporating as the evidence piled up. Olivia, her face pale but determined, stepped forward. "Victoria, you've made a mockery of everything that's supposed to be good and honorable," she said, her voice trembling but steady. "This wedding was meant to be a union of love and respect, not a platform for your manipulation." The church was abuzz with shock and outrage, the guest whispers growing louder. Ethan and Olivia stood side by side, their shared resolve a powerful force against Victoria's crumbling empire. As the chaos unfolded, Ethan took Olivia's hand gently. "We'll get through this," he said quietly. "Together, we'll make sure the truth is known, and we'll work to build something positive out of this." Olivia squeezed his hand, her eyes filled with a mixture of gratitude and determination. "Thank you, Ethan, for standing up and fighting for what's right." The Reverend cleared his throat, stepping forward with authority. Given the gravity of the situation, I think it's clear that the wedding can no longer proceed under these circumstances, he announced. If you're still tuned into this video and find the story inspiring, drop a 4 in the comments to let me know you're still with me. Victoria, now a broken figure amidst the storm of revelations, slumped into a seat, her plan unraveling before her eyes. As the guests began to disperse, the reality of the day's events sank in. Ethan and Olivia, despite the turmoil, knew that their journey was far from over. The truth had been exposed, but the path ahead was uncertain. As the church slowly emptied, Ethan and Olivia remained, their resolve stronger than ever. Together they faced the future, ready to confront the challenges and find their way forward amidst the wreckage of Victoria's schemes. The church fell into a profound silence as Ethan's words hung in the air. The revelation was a thunderclap that shook the very foundation of Victoria's carefully constructed life. The guests were stunned, their faces a mix of disbelief and shock as they processed the gravity of Ethan's confession. Victoria's face turned ashen, her composure shattered. She staggered back, her eyes wide with a mixture of fear and anger. The walls she had so meticulously built around her life were crumbling, exposing the dark truth she had fought so hard to keep hidden. Robert, who had been a passive observer until now, stood with his mouth agape, struggling to reconcile the man standing before him with the son he thought had vanished forever. His expression was one of profound sadness and regret, a man grappling with the consequences of the lies that had twisted his family's history. Olivia's gaze was locked on Ethan, her eyes reflecting a whirlwind of emotion, shock, admiration, and a fierce determination to support him. Her initial confusion was replaced by a resolute understanding of the depth of Ethan's struggle and the courage it took to confront Victoria. The Reverend, who had been watching the scene unfold with growing concern, finally spoke. "Ethan, this is a serious accusation. Are you prepared to back up these claims with evidence?" His voice was a mixture of authority and empathy, as if trying to guide the situation towards some semblance of order amidst the chaos. Ethan nodded firmly. "Yes, Reverend. I have proof, documents, and testimonies that substantiate my claims." He gestured to the folder he had brought, which had been the source of the incriminating evidence against Victoria. "The elderly man who spoke to me earlier provided crucial information. He was a witness to the events surrounding my disappearance and can confirm everything I've said." Victoria, still reeling from the shock, attempted to regain her composure. "This is absurd. You have no right to accuse me of these things," she protested, her voice trembling with a mix of desperation and defiance. "This is nothing but a fabrication to ruin my reputation." Ethan's voice remained unwavering. "The truth is not a fabrication, Victoria. The evidence is clear. You made choices that affected countless lives, including mine. It's time for you to face the consequences of those choices." As the reality of the situation sank in, the guests began to murmur among themselves, their opinions shifting rapidly. Whispers of scandal, betrayal, and injustice filled the church, creating a palpable tension that seemed to electrify the air. Robert, struggling to come to terms with the revelation, approached Victoria. "How could you do this?" he asked, his voice breaking with a mix of hurt and betrayal. "You have to face the truth now, Victoria. This can't continue." Victoria's bravado finally crumbled under the weight of the truth. Tears streamed down her face as she realized the extent of the damage her actions had caused. The carefully maintained image she had projected for so long was in tatters, and the consequences of her past decisions were catching up with her. Olivia, her voice steady and filled with compassion, addressed Ethan. "Thank you for your bravery, Ethan. This must have been incredibly difficult for you, but your courage in revealing the truth is what has finally brought justice to light." Ethan nodded, his expression a mixture of relief and resolve. "I'm just glad that the truth is out now. It's time to rebuild and move forward from this." The Reverend stepped forward, his role as the officiant of the ceremony now overshadowed by the drama that had unfolded. "Given the seriousness of these revelations, it is clear that the ceremony cannot continue as planned," he announced. "We must address the legal and personal ramifications of these events." As the church began to empty, the guests left with a mixture of curiosity and disbelief, leaving Ethan, Olivia, Robert, and Victoria to face the aftermath of the day's dramatic turn of events. Ethan and Olivia, standing side by side, felt a profound sense of relief and determination. Their paths had crossed in a way neither could have anticipated, but the strength and resolve they had shown in the face of adversity would guide them as they navigated the uncertain future ahead. Together, they were ready to confront the challenges that lay before them and to seek justice for the wrongs that had been done. The transformation in Ethan and Olivia's lives was nothing short of remarkable. As they began their journey together, their focus shifted from personal struggles to a greater purpose. The wealth and resources that had once been tainted by deception and manipulation were now redirected toward meaningful causes. Ethan and Olivia set up a foundation dedicated to supporting those who found themselves in desperate situations similar to Ethan's past. They focused on providing shelter, education, and rehabilitation programs for the homeless, ensuring that others could find hope and a path to a better future. Their foundation quickly gained recognition and support from various sectors of society, not just for its charitable efforts, but for the genuine compassion and commitment it represented. Ethan and Olivia worked tirelessly, meeting with beneficiaries, advocating for policy changes, and inspiring others to get involved. Victoria's fall from grace became a cautionary tale about the dangers of greed and deceit. While Ethan and Olivia's story served as a testament to the power of resilience and love, the media, which had once been focused on scandal and ruin, began to shift its narrative towards the positive impact of Ethan and Olivia's work. Months later, at the grand opening of the Foundation's first major community center, Ethan and Olivia stood together, a symbol of new beginnings. The center was bustling with activity, children learning, families receiving support, and volunteers working diligently. Ethan addressed the crowd, his voice filled with hope and gratitude. "This center is more than just a building," Ethan said, looking around at the faces of those who had come to support their cause. "It represents a chance for everyone to start anew, to find hope and opportunity where there was once only despair. Olivia and I are deeply committed to ensuring that we make a difference in the lives of those who need it most." As Ethan spoke, Olivia stood by his side, her eyes filled with pride and love. The couple had turned their tragedy into a force for good, and their journey together had become a beacon of hope for many. They were no longer just survivors of a painful past. They were leaders in a movement that aimed to create lasting change. Victoria's fate remained uncertain, but Ethan and Olivia chose not to dwell on the past. Instead, they focused on building a future filled with purpose and positivity. Their love story, born from adversity, had blossomed into a partnership dedicated to making the world a better place. Together, Ethan and Olivia embraced their new life with open hearts and a shared mission. The trials they had faced had only strengthened their bond, and their commitment to helping others became the cornerstone of their journey forward. In the months that followed, Ethan and Olivia embarked on a remarkable journey, establishing a foundation with an unwavering commitment to aiding the homeless and abandoned children, those who had been cruelly cast aside by a society that often overlooked their suffering. Their dedication was not just a mission but a profound calling. Day after day, they immersed themselves in their work with unrelenting passion, driven by a deep sense of purpose and compassion. They envisioned and created heavens of hope, places where the destitute could find not only shelter but also dignity, education, and a chance at a new life. Robert, who had been deeply tormented by the weight of his inadvertent involvement in Victoria's malicious schemes, sought redemption through heartfelt action. His sincere efforts to support Ethan and Olivia's cause were a testament to his remorse and newfound sense of responsibility. Ethan's story was nothing short of extraordinary. From the depths of despair as a beggar to the astonishing revelation of his true identity as a long-lost heir, his journey of transformation and subsequent dedication to philanthropy captured the public's imagination. He became a living symbol of hope and redemption, embodying the belief that even the most insurmountable challenges can be overcome with resilience and grace. On one tranquil evening, as they sat on their porch, bathed in the soft, golden hues of the setting sun, Ethan turned to Olivia, his eyes reflecting a profound depth of feeling. "For so many years, I wandered through life, feeling lost and adrift, searching for something that I couldn't even put into words. Now, I realized that what I was truly searching for was this finding a place where I belong, discovering a purpose, and experiencing the profound gift of love." If you're still tuned into this video and find this story inspiring, drop a 5 in the comments to let me know you're still with me. Olivia, her heart brimming with warmth, nestled closer to him, her eyes sparkling with a mixture of pride and affection. And to think it all began with a simple, selfless act of kindness on that street corner. Never underestimate the impact of such gestures, Ethan. They have the power to change the world. Thus, what had started as a vindictive scheme of revenge and degradation evolved into an inspiring narrative of love, redemption, and boundless hope. United by their shared experiences of adversity, Ethan and Olivia channeled their pain and trials into a beacon of light for others. The Howard Harrison Foundation, born from their collective vision, quickly grew into a transformative force within the city. They opened shelters that provided not just physical protection, but also a comprehensive network of support services, including rehabilitation programs, job training, and counseling. These initiatives aim to uplift individuals, offering them the tools and opportunities to reclaim their lives. Abandoned children, who had previously known only neglect and despair, found solace in new beginnings through meticulously managed adoption programs that offered them loving homes and hopeful futures. Each year, dozens of young people were granted scholarships, allowing them to break free from the cycle of poverty that had once been Ethan's harsh reality. The impact of their work spread like a ripple across the community, touching lives in ways they had never imagined. Inspired by Ethan and Olivia's relentless dedication, other affluent families began to reassess their priorities, finding new purpose in contributing to causes that had previously been ignored. The city, once known for its indifferent elite and societal apathy, began to gain a reputation for compassion and progressive social change. Ethan, once a lost soul, became a revered symbol of resilience and hope. He frequently spoke at schools and universities, sharing his profound journey with students and inspiring them to persevere through their struggles. Olivia, leveraging her influential social connections, worked tirelessly to bring attention to causes that had been overlooked by high society, rallying support and igniting a movement of generosity and empathy. Together, Ethan and Olivia proved that true worth is not measured by social status or financial success, but by the capacity to uplift and support others. Their story became a powerful testament to the enduring power of kindness and the profound impact of a single compassionate act. As the years passed, they reflected with a deep sense of wonder and gratitude on the journey that had brought them to this transformative place. What had begun with a humble act of kindness on a bustling street had evolved into a sweeping movement that illuminated countless lives. They continued their tireless work with unwavering dedication, driven by an unyielding resolve to make the world a better place, one act of kindness at a time. Their legacy stands as a poignant reminder that love and compassion have the power to overcome even the darkest shadows and create a ripple of change that extends far beyond their own lives. Thank you for joining us on this journey through Ethan and Olivia's remarkable story of transformation and hope. Their incredible evolution from adversity to philanthropy serves as a powerful reminder that even in our darkest moments, kindness and compassion have the power to spark profound change. We've witnessed how a single act of generosity can grow into a movement that touches countless lives and reshapes communities. So what have you learned from Ethan and Olivia's journey? How has their story inspired you? We'd love to hear your thoughts and reflections. Please share in the comments below one lesson you've gleaned and how you plan to apply it to your own life. If you found this video inspiring, please leave a comment and don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to our YouTube channel for more stories that touch the heart and inspire action. Your support helps us continue to bring meaningful content to our community. Thank you for being part of this journey with us.